Great. Thank you very much for joining today's webinar. We're really happy to have you here, and thank you a lot for your interest. I would just like to welcome you for this webinar today on enhancing the use of ecolabels and sustainable public procurement in the ICT sector for circularity. Just to briefly introduce myself, my name is Sophia Letizia Groll. I'm an Associate Program Management Officer at the United Nations Environment Programme, and I will be your host today. This webinar explores the potential of ecolabels and sustainable public procurement practices to achieve circularity in the ICT sector. And we will also showcase international initiatives to foster sustainable public procurement practices, specifically for this sector. This webinar is organized by the EcoAdvance project and the One Planet Network's Consumer Information Program in collaboration with the GIZ, the German Agency for International Cooperation. And the EcoAdvance project is funded by the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Consumer Protection, the BMUV. Just a few organizational notes to start with. So please note that this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared afterwards together with all of the presentations. There is also simultaneous Spanish and Portuguese interpretation, which you can activate using the language button. And please do let us know in the chat if you have any difficulties with this function. I would also like to warmly encourage you to use the Q&A box for questions. Our speakers and presenters can answer directly in the Q&A box, and we will also have a Q&A session in the end of the webinar to address these questions. And finally, we're always very interested in hearing where you're joining from today and what you do. So if you would like to share that information in the chat, you're very welcome to do so. So just to give you a brief overview of today's agenda, we will first give an introduction into the Consumer Information Program as well as the EcoAdvance project. And then we will start off with some very interesting presentations. First about EPEAT, the Electronic Product Environmental Assessment Tool, which is a global ecolabel for electronics products. Then we will hear from TCO Certified, which is a global sustainability certification for IT products. And finally, we will hear a presentation about the Circular and Fair ICT Pact, which is a global procurement-led initiative. And as I just said, please feel free to post any questions that might come up into the Q&A box. And we are very happy to have 3 excellent speakers with us today. I will now stop sharing my screen and allow for our panelists to turn on their cameras. So we have with us today Catherine Larocque, who is the Director of Ecolabels and Resources at the Global Electronics Council, the GEC. Catherine is responsible for managing the EPEAT program and also serves on the board of directors for the Global Ecolabeling Network, GEN. We have with us today as well Claire Hobby. Claire is the Director of Purchaser Engagement at TCO Development and leads external engagement for TCO Certified. Claire currently serves in board and advisory roles as well with the Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council and the Clean Electronics Production Network. And finally, we have Jekaterina Smit-Genkin with us, who works for the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management on strategic circular procurement and thereby fostering collaboration at both national and international levels. And through the Circular and Fair ICT Pact, Ekaterina advances circularity, fairness, and sustainability in the IT sector. Thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate that you're here and we're looking forward to your presentations. Let me just share my screen again. I believe you can see my screen. Great, thanks for confirming. Okay, I would now like to give a brief overview of what the One Planet Network is and what the Consumer Information Program is. So basically, the One Planet Network is a global multi-stakeholder community working to achieve SDG 12, which is the Sustainable Development Goal on responsible consumption and production. And the One Planet Network is comprised of thousands of individual members, partner organizations, and 6 global programs. And one of those programs is the Consumer Information Program, which implements and supports projects, undertakes research, and identifies and encourages policies, and basically provides collaboration opportunity for anyone looking to engage in sustainable consumption. And the program is co-led by the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, the BMUV, UN Trade and Development, and Consumers International. So as you can see on my screen, the program consists of 4 different working groups. We have one working group currently focusing on product sustainability information, basically looking at how to make effective and trustworthy claims to consumers. We have a working group on ecolabels and certification schemes, which is especially relevant for today's webinar, as this is also the working group working on the good practices, of which one we will present today. And this working group is led by the Global Ecolabeling Network and the UN Environment Program. There is also a working group on product lifetime extension, and this working group focuses specifically on the electronic sector. Might also be of interest to some of you joining today. And finally, we have a working group on biodiversity and consumption. The Consumer Information Program has different ways of communicating what is happening in the program. We regularly organize events, webinars, presentations, such as the one today. We also have a news and events section on our website, and a newsletter that is sent out every 2 months to over 3,000 experts in the field. And partners of the program are very welcome and encouraged to participate or present in these events and also share their news through our networks. And some of you might already be members of the Consumer Information Program or even one of its working groups. And if you are not and you're interested in joining, you're very, very welcome to contact us. I will post the email address and the website in the chat soon. I would also like to give you a brief overview of the EcoAdvance project and the series of good practices that we are developing. And basically, the project is looking at how ecolabels and sustainable public procurement can be used together to promote a more sustainable environment, looking particularly into climate change and biodiversity. And the EcoAdvance project is implemented in 5 countries in Latin America, but it has a very big component on global exchange and the sharing of good practices. And we've developed a number of good practices, but today we will focus on the good practice on the ICT sector. And we would really like to invite you and encourage you to replicate these good practices. And we're also very happy to have bilateral conversations with you to see how we could support you in replicating these good practices. And on my screen, you can see 2 email addresses that you can contact. For one, it's Leticia Montero, my colleague here at UNEP, and myself, Sophia Groll. I will also share these email addresses in the chat, and we will share this presentation with you. So here you can see an overview of all of the good practices that have already been developed. At the moment, there are 12 in total, but the list will be extended to 20 good practices in the future. And each good practice is about 5 to 10 pages and just gives an overview of the topic and provides links to more information. Yes, to spark your interest. And there are a few good practices on public policy and how ecolabels and sustainable public procurement can be used together. The good practice that is highlighted in bold is the one that we are presenting today, or which our speakers will present more about. We also have a few good practices that are more directed towards ecolabels and certification schemes, and how they can improve their communication with their stakeholders. We've also been developing good practices on supporting tools. These are more for public procurers. And finally, we've been looking more into biodiversity and how ecolabels and sustainable public procurement can support the conservation of biodiversity. So for today's webinar, we're looking at this good practice on ecolabels and certifications criteria for electronics and their use on sustainable public procurement. And on the screen, you can see the two cases that we've been looking at within this good practice, which are TCO certified and EPEAT. And we will hear more about these. So just very briefly, what is this good practice about? Basically, we are looking into ecolabels and certification schemes that certify and assess the sustainability of IT products, such as computers and displays, and that are doing so by addressing their environmental and social impacts across the entire life cycle. And we're also looking at how ecolabels and certification schemes can be used to minimize environmental and social impacts in different stages, production, use, and disposal of electronic products. And finally, we're looking at how ecolabels can be used in public procurement to support the selection of sustainable IT products, reduce e-waste, and promote responsible resource use. And how can this benefit sustainable public procurement, or why is this important for public procurers? Well, basically, ecolabels are a really useful tool for public procurers because it simplifies their process. We can't expect public procurers to always be experts on sustainability on all of the products that they purchase. So when they want to make a purchase based on product sustainability, they can look at the ecolabel and see which criteria have been defined that can go into the tender. And the second really big asset of ecolabels and certification schemes is that they can also support to see if the market is ready to provide sustainable products. For example, if a public procurer wants to purchase sustainable IT products, such as computers, they can look at the availability of certified computers and assess the market readiness. Ecolabels and certification schemes also give access to reliable data because they are third-party verified, and they can also be really useful to measure the impact of sustainability of public procurement. And I believe we will hear an example of that as well for EPEAT. And finally, if public procurers use ecolabels and certification schemes, this sends a clear signal to the market and encourages companies to certify their products. And what we expect to see in general is a transformation of the market so that the products that are available will be more sustainable. I will stop my presentation here. You can see two links for the EcoAdvance project and the Consumer Information Program. And as I've said before, you're very welcome to reach out to us in case you would like to know more or have any questions. Thank you very much. I will now stop sharing my screen and invite my colleague Farzana to share the screen. Great. We can see your screen. Thank you very much, Farzana. I would like to now hand over to Catherine Lerock to hear about the power of procurement and leveraging EPEAT for sustainable electronics. Catherine, the floor is yours for the next 10 minutes. Over to you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Well, hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be speaking to you today about the EPEAT ecolabel, so thanks very much for having me. Next slide, please. Before I dive into EPEAT, I thought it might be useful to first tell you a little bit about the Global Electronics Council, or GEC for short. GEC is a mission-driven nonprofit that was established back in 2006, and it is dedicated to creating a world with only sustainable electronic technology. And perhaps most importantly for this audience, GEC also owns and manages EPEAT. Next slide, please. For those of you not familiar with EPEAT, it is a global Type 1 ecolabel for electronics and technology products. EPEAT is a full member of the Global Ecolabeling Network, and we've also obtained independent accreditation against the ISO 14024 standard for Type 1 ecolabels by ANAB as well. EPEAT was established in 2006, and since this time, it has grown significantly. We have roughly 4,800 unique products that can be found in the EPEAT registry, and over 60 companies participate in the program, with products registered in 46 countries across the 7 product categories that you can see in the green box on the screen. The registry itself is an online platform that lists all EPEAT registered products. It's freely available to anyone, so feel free to just go to epeat.net to check it out. Next slide, please. EPEAT is used extensively as a sustainable procurement tool for electronics across the globe. In fact, EPEAT is trusted by so many purchasers. There are over 14 countries with over $1 billion each in annual EPEAT sales, and you can see all of them on the screen. At GEC, we often describe ecolabels as the easy button for purchasers because ecolabels develop criteria to address the key sustainability impacts, and they require independent third-party verification of conformance with the criteria. So because we do all of that work, it means that purchasers don't have to become sustainability experts or conduct verification on their own. If a credible ecolabel exists for a product that you're looking to purchase, use it, rely on it. That's why we are here. Ecolabels like EPEAT are powerful, voluntary, market-based tools, and they can and really have transformed industries to become more sustainable because they establish critical mass across global supply chains. And this is why ecolabels are used so extensively as sustainable procurement tools all over the world. Next slide, please. The perception that sustainable products are more expensive than conventional ones, unfortunately remains a key barrier to sustainable procurement. And to this end, we make the EPEAT Environmental Benefits Calculator freely available to help organizations demonstrate the impact of their sustainable procurement decisions. To use the calculator, all you have to do is enter the number of EPEAT registered products that you purchased. You'll then receive data that tells you the environmental impact reductions associated with those purchases across several key metrics. However, that's not all. The calculator can also measure the benefits of extending the product life and reusing and recycling the equipment. So this allows a purchaser to test different scenarios and see the impact, for instance, of keeping the product in service for an additional year or 2. Next slide, please. As you can see on this slide, we've been able to use our own environmental benefits calculator to estimate the benefits associated with global purchases of EPEAT registered products in any given year. And what you're seeing on the screen is the impact of 2022 sales of EPEAT products. So the 300 million EPEAT registered products that we estimate were sold in 2022 resulted in a reduction of 8 million tons of carbon, 100 million megawatts of energy saved, and $5.3 billion in cost savings. The benefits really are quite staggering, and these figures are useful for purchasers trying to build a compelling reason to specify sustainable electronics. Next slide, please. All right, with that overview out of the way, I am going to dive into our new criteria. Next slide, please. As some of you may know, GEC initiated a major criteria revision process several years ago to develop new horizontal criteria across 4 sustainability impact modules that could be applied to our ICT product categories. And I am thrilled to report that we finally finished this process and published the final module last month. We developed criteria that address climate change, circularity, chemicals of concern, and responsible supply chains. But where a product category has unique impacts that are not addressed by these horizontal criteria, we developed additional criteria to do so. And in case you're curious about timing, products that meet the new criteria will begin appearing on the EPEAT registry as early as November 1st this year. Next slide, please. So before I dive into the details of the criteria, I'd like to set the stage and help you understand why we are so excited about this next generation of EPEAT criteria, because they really are transformative and we expect them to drive the whole industry forward. First and foremost, a big change for us is simply the fact that the new criteria are horizontal criteria. So because they will be applied across all of our ICT product categories, it means that stakeholders only have to understand one set of criteria, which is really great news for purchasers and manufacturers alike. Secondly, the new criteria address sustainability risks deeper within supply chains than ever before, from reducing GHG emissions upstream to prohibiting the use of forced labor. This means that when you purchase a product that meets the new criteria, you are not only purchasing a more sustainable product, but one that has been built by a more sustainable company with responsible and more sustainable supply chains too. The new criteria also really emphasize requirements for increased manufacturer transparency. So there are requirements, for instance, to make product carbon footprint data publicly available and for responsible mineral sourcing disclosures as well. Lastly, the criteria really do significantly raise the bar and represent a significant step forward in aligning the operations, supply chains, and products of the global electronics sector with leading sustainability and ethical sourcing practices. Next slide, please. So although I won't be able to discuss all of the issues our new criteria cover today, I do want to highlight a few key issues across each of the modules just to give you a feel for what they address. Within climate, the updated criteria really focus on supply chain decarbonization. To this end, we have criteria that require manufacturers to measure GHG emissions, establish GHG reduction goals, and make product carbon footprint data publicly available. And we also have a criterion that actually requires manufacturers to use renewable electricity in manufacturing. Under the circularity module, you will see that we have criteria that actually require the use of reused or recycled post-consumer plastic. And we even have criteria that address water stewardship, product durability, and repairability. Moving on to chemicals, we really raised the bar here in developing criteria to restrict the use of PFAS in products and packaging. And last but certainly not least, under responsible supply chains, we have a host of criteria that require things like supply chain risk assessments, supplier audits, living wage assessments, and responsible mineral sourcing. Before I move on, I do want to mention that every EPEAT criterion is either identified as required or optional. This isn't something new, but I know it can sometimes be confusing for purchasers if you're not familiar with our system. Please know that we use this approach for very good reasons. The required criteria address key sustainability impacts across the life cycle of the product, and they are designed to identify products that represent sustainability leadership. And most importantly, a product has to meet all of the required criteria to obtain EPEAT. So the required and optional criteria don't create loopholes or shortcuts. Instead, we use the optional criteria to incentivize even higher levels of sustainability performance, and we've seen that they actually create a race to the top. Next slide, please. GEC's criteria development process is robust. It's a great example of best practice and something that we are very proud of. So I am going to provide a quick overview of it today so you can understand the process that guided the development of the new criteria that I just spoke about. The first step in our process is the development and publication of a State of Sustainability Research Report, which really provides a starting point for criteria development. We publish this document for a public stakeholder comment period, and after that, we develop criteria that is then delivered to expert ad hoc groups for their input and review. Importantly, participation in expert ad hoc groups is open to anyone, and then GEC then delivers to the technical committee draft criteria that the expert ad hocs have reviewed. The technical committee is the decision-making body, and this is where the balanced voluntary consensus process really begins. You have to apply to participate in the technical committee, and the number of participants is restricted to ensure balanced representation from the stakeholders you see on the right. We also hold at least one public stakeholder comment period on the draft criteria, but it is the technical committee that is responsible for ultimately reaching consensus on all of the criteria and verification requirements. Next slide. Now, I included this slide just to give you some perspective regarding the diversity of stakeholders that participated in the development of the new criteria, because it really is quite impressive. It's truly a community effort, and our criteria are stronger because of it. So a big thank you to anyone on the phone today that might have engaged with us. And next slide, please. EPEAT has been raising the bar in defining and then redefining sustainability leadership for years. As a Type 1 ecolabel, that's just what we and all other credible ecolabels do. But this slide hopefully illustrates a little more clearly how our criteria have evolved from the very early days of EPEAT to the present. To be clear, EPEAT still addresses all of the issues on the left, except now we also cover the issues on the right side of the screen as well. So for example, in the early years, EPEAT addressed product energy efficiency and fluorinated GHGs. Today, we still address these issues, but our criteria also address manufacturing energy efficiency, use of renewable electricity, and GHG reduction targets. So I'm not going to go through all of these today, but I do just want to emphasize that our criteria are measurable, science-driven, and require manufacturers to take action. That was the case back in the early days of EPEAT, and it certainly remains true today. And with that, I think I'm done. Next slide. Perfect. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks a lot, Catherine, for this great presentation. Really interesting to hear more about EPEAT and also about the benefits for public procurers. So thank you very much. And thank you also to participants. I can see that you've been very active in the chat. We really have participants joining from everywhere in the world today. I see some familiar names, others are new, so welcome, and yeah, thanks for joining. And please do feel free to use the Q&A section for any questions that you might have. And with that, I would like to hand over to Claire Hobby, who will present on TCO certified and building a sustainable IT roadmap through certification. Claire, over to you.
Great, thanks Sophia, and thanks Catherine. Yeah, hi everyone, good to be with you today. Here to talk a little bit about TCO certified as a sustainability certification for IT products. And to start off with, I would agree, the eco-labels, good eco-labels are available not just in ICT, but in any number of categories. And I strongly encourage you to make use of them because they are designed to do a lot of the work for you. They are designed to give you reassurance and they're designed to bring your voice to this big aggregated signal to the industry that you're wanting to target. Today, I want to talk a little bit about some of the work that goes on behind the scenes when you ask for TCO certified. We've built a roadmap for longer term development of our criteria and the kinds of impacts that we want to have. Next slide. Just really briefly about TCO certified before we get started. We've been in this space for over 30 years now. So public procurement, private procurement around the world has used TCO certified since 1992. So definitely not new to this space. We cover a broad spectrum of criteria from environmental also through to social criteria. And there we're talking specifically about social aspects, particularly in the supply chain. In our case, independent verification is mandatory for every product, and our system is built that you must pass all the criteria to receive TCO certified. So it's kind of a pass-fail system. We believe that's important for clear understanding of what you're getting and for the credibility of our label itself. So that independent verification involves all the products. So any product must go through third-party testing in an accredited facility. And the factories, we have those independent verifiers that go into the manufacturing facilities, assess what's going on, monitor any improvements that need to be made, and go back to make sure that those corrections are made. So it's quite a rigorous system. We've got a wide choice of products available at our website that you can go and check out from around 27, 28 brands, I think, today. We mainly deal in the desktop IT space, so laptops, monitors, those kinds of things that you would typically use in a workplace setting. Next slide. The 4 areas that we deal with are climate, substances, circularity, and supply chain, again, which we are kind of the fundamental pillars of any work that you would do in sustainable IT. Next. So a little bit about our roadmap. Now, if you think about IT, the product that you're going to be using in 4 to 5 years' time is probably in the design phase right now. So we need to be looking ahead at what sorts of criteria we need to have in place now that can influence those products that are further down the track. We've had an internal roadmap for many, many years, but we think it's important and useful to make that public as well so that purchasers, the brands, and the whole ecosystem can really get a feel for where we're going with the certification. We refresh our criteria every 3 years, which is a very ambitious cycle, but we believe that's essential for driving the impact that we want. The QR code in the corner takes you straight to the roadmap itself, either on your phone or a computer. It's a dynamic roadmap. You can follow along with all 4 of these areas to see what kinds of improvements we're wanting to make in our criteria over the next years. Next slide. I won't go through all this in detail, but basically the way the roadmap is set up is that there's a long-term vision for each of the areas, along with the approaches we're taking now and moving ahead. And we've also included some tactics for procurement, how to think about each of these different topics, not only as part of using an eco-label like TCO certified, but also when you're having those really important internal conversations to get your organization on board with sustainability and IT, how you use the products once you've procured them, and how to handle them throughout their lifetime. Next. So if we think about it from a procurement perspective, IT is an incredibly complex category, right? And there's very little that you can actually see. We go down to raw materials, through to smelters, through to the very vast array of subcomponents and component producers. We want to be able to influence it all, but much of it is hidden. This is where something like TCO certified comes in, because when you use TCO certified, you're joining this large global signal for us to get into that supply chain and really assess what's going on and gradually move further and further up that supply chain so that your voice has an impact. Next. So basically, a good certification helps reach where procurement can't directly reach. So again, going into those factories with independent verifiers, holding them accountable for making the improvements that the criteria ask for. In this case, things like compliance with ILO and UN conventions and such. We have a list of, I think, around 80 factories right now that we have under our constant monitoring and risk assessment. So you can rest assured that that work is being done behind the scenes. Next. So just again about the verification of compliance that we have in place, there's a pre-certification phase where any product that carries TCO certified must be assessed in one of our independent sites, as well as the factories going through factory auditing. Then the brand will apply for the certification, assuming all the right reports have been submitted, all the testing has been successful, then they can achieve TCO certified. But there's also this very important follow-up phase where we go back to the factories, we take the corrective action plans, make sure that those corrective actions are corrected and closed. This is an incredibly important part of the continuous improvement that an eco-label should be driving. Next. And again, back to this idea of an accepted factory list. You can see that we have 3 categories of factories that we work with on an ongoing basis. Any factory that manufactures products that are TCO certified on them are part of this accepted factory list. So certified products can only be made in one of these factories. Right now, we've focused on final assembly. We are now moving into the tier 2 factories. So factories that make a panel, for example, that goes into your laptop computer. So these are all risk assessed depending on their track record, their location, the amount of non-conformities that we may have found in the past. So this is a part of this ongoing monitoring that's already in place automatically when you use TCO certified. Next. Another accepted list that we have is called our TCO certified accepted substance list. And this is a really great resource, even if you're outside of the IT industry, because this is a public list of substances that have been independently assessed as safer, both for human health and the environment. If you think about it, we're banning a lot of really dangerous chemicals out there, but we want to identify what's safer. And that's what this list does. So this is a publicly available list. You can go to our website and grab it straight away, of cleaners, flame retardants, plasticizers, and stabilizers. And we've also started this work in lubricants and adhesives. Next. So again, going back to what Catherine also said, that, you know, procurement really drives progress in this space. And we encourage everyone on the call today and everyone you may speak to, it's not just a matter of choosing products that have a solid certification, it's about making that explicit, putting it in your procurement language, putting it in your policies and your guides. This is a really important market signal that the industry looks to see. So it's really important that we not just choose the products, but specifically ask for that eco-label. Next. Just an example, I know we have a lot of Spanish speakers on the call today. Just a sample of the many, many guides that are out there. This particular one comes from Spain, where it gives some eco-label options and gives a description of what they include. So these are super useful. Make use of those as well. Next. A couple of tools from our website. We have a product finder. Here's where you can go find every product that has TCO certified on it. You can also get some sustainability performance indicators, things like material footprint, energy consumption, those kinds of things. We also have a report generator that lets you go and measure according to these 4 areas that we mentioned earlier. Next. And finally, what works when it comes to a solid eco-label or certification? We've already talked about use them and use them with intention, send that signal. And I would say definitely educate and empower procurement. We see a lot of good intentions amongst procurement, but not always that security of what they need to do to have a more sustainable approach. So really get clear on what issues the eco-label is targeting if you're looking to choose an eco-label. And how do we actually act? Do we just put it in our procurement? Should we talk to our vendors about it in advance? We've got a great guide at our website on how to really work with an eco-label in a way that is strategic and gets you the outcomes that you want. And I would say any eco-label you're looking to choose, look into it. Ask about the independent verification. Is it mandatory? Is it optional? What does it actually cover? What does the independent verification look like? For instance, if you go to our website, our full criteria documents are publicly available. In there, we also talk about how the verification needs to be done, what kinds of testing, what kinds of reports need to be produced. So it's completely transparent for anyone to see. Make sure that the eco-label has a system of follow-up and accountability when products maybe no longer meet that, all those criteria. What happens? What does the eco-label have the power to do to make sure that those criteria continue to be met? And check how often the criteria are updated. In this particular category, it needs to be quite ambitious and it needs to be continuous, because technology develops fast, as we know. So definitely, in conclusion, use the good eco-labels that are right in front of you, that do a lot of work for you. TCOcertified.com has a ton of resources that you can freely take and use, and we're always happy to help. And I think that was my last slide. Yes, feel free to reach out to me with any questions or any resources you may need. And I will hand that back to you, Sophia.
Thank you very much, Claire, for the great presentation. And just to be mindful of time, I will directly hand over to Ekaterina Smith-Genkin, who will give us an overview of the Circular and Fair ICT Pact. Over to you.
Yeah, hola, bom dia. So yeah, my name is Ekaterina, as I was already introduced, and thank you so much, Sophia, for hosting this, and Claire and Catherine for the great presentations. So I work for the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management, and I am part of a team that focuses on strategic sustainable public procurement, both nationally and internationally. And we see public procurement really as a very powerful tool that helps central and local governments to support climate goals and the transition to a circular economy. So in this context, you will often hear me mention CFIT, the Circular and Fair ICT Pact. I work for the CFIT Secretariat, which is currently hosted by our ministry. So CFIT was launched in 2021 as a part of the UNEP One Planet SPP program, and it was initiated by the Netherlands and Belgium together with like-minded governments. It's a global partnership that uses the power of procurement to drive more sustainable production and the use of ICT products worldwide. So the key issue in the ICT sector as we see it, which can also be addressed through sustainable public procurement, lies in the gap, on the one hand, between the large-scale production by, of course, the global ICT companies, and on the other, the fragmented demand of individual buyers. So ICT products, and our current scope is on our current scope of CFIT is on laptops, desktops, smartphones, and also data center equipment, are often produced in vast quantities, often under conditions that are neither fair or circular. And while many organizations share sustainability goals, their individual efforts remain more disconnected, also therefore limiting their influence on the complex ICT supply chain, was what was already highlighted. And this is exactly where CFIT comes in. Instead of acting in isolation, CFIT brings organizations together to strengthen their impact by uniting public and private procurers with supporting organizations. CFIT fosters collaboration, aligning procurement strategies and sustainability standards. So this collective efforts amplifies market influence. The goal of CFIT is to really reshape the markets by driving demand for circular and fair ICT products, and by also adopting shared sustainability criteria and procurement tools. Participants of CFIT really can help make responsible production and consumption the norm. And this approach allows CFIT to move really beyond existing market standards and establish also independent, more sustainability criteria that are also free from commercial interests. So in essence, to come full circle, the key mechanism within a CFIT is the ability to really amplify purchasing influence, sending a stronger market signal, and encouraging suppliers to meet higher environmental and social standards. And this is a coordinated effort by participants that can really drive long-term improvements across the ICT industry. So currently, as you see on the right, CFIT has participants across 50 countries, including Norway, Switzerland, Canada, and also the BEMU in Germany, the federal government, as well as also multilateral organizations such as UNEPS, the Pan American Health Organization. And we have two types of CFIT participants. On the one hand are the coordinating organizations, which promote sustainable public procurement with their respective countries or regions. And as part of CFIT, they can establish so-called buyer groups within their own country or region. And these groups facilitate exchanges in the local language and within the framework of national legislation. Making collaboration also more accessible, for example, for more smaller and local organizations. And all procuring organizations can also join this group to share experiences, to really learn from each other and build capacity in circular and fair ICT procurement. So our second type of participants are the procuring participants who demonstrate a strong commitment to purchasing sustainable ICT products. So we welcome actually organizations at any stage of their procurement journey, whether you're just starting or already are very well advanced. We invite these organizations to join the Pact and the CFIT network. And we also now have a third category, which are the supporting organizations, which make it also possible for us to engage more with industry stakeholders. These includes the ecolabels, the TCO development organization behind TCO certified, the Global Electronics Council is labeled behind EPEAT, and also NGOs like, for example, Electronics Watch, which is an independent monitoring organization that helps also public buyers address human risks in global electronics supply chains. So these are all aligning with CFIT's mission and vision. Our supporting organizations contribute and very valuable insights also to our work, and as we share the same mission, but I cannot steer the direction of the program and the way that our coordinating and procuring participants can. Next slide, please. You may hear me mention CFIT's program very frequently. So I'd like to explain a moment to briefly what it entails. The way that we approach procurement at CFIT is more adapting a strategic perspective that goes beyond the tender process itself. We take into account the entire procurement life cycle, which includes both pre-tender and the post-tender stages, as also illustrated in the CFIT framework, which is also fully accessible on our website if you scan the QR code. So before the tender, we focus on identifying strategies and needs, for instance, by buying less, such as reducing the number of devices purchased by evaluating whether employees truly need new equipment or existing devices can be repurposed, for example. During the tender process, we emphasize buying better, which could also include requiring ecolabels like EPEAT and TCO certified, to ensure the higher environmental and social standards. And then post-tender, our focus shifts to optimizing product use, extending device lifetimes to reduce e-waste, and also planning for the responsible disposal of or recycling of products at the end of their life cycle. So these strategies show that improving ICT sustainability isn't just the responsibility of those managing tenders. It involves really everyone across departments throughout the procurement process. This ensures also that sustainability becomes a shared goal, enabling organizations to manage ICT resources more efficiently and responsibly. So to support this effort, we regularly also share case studies on our website. These highlight how different organizations and countries implement sustainable ICT procurement strategies, and are also currently available in English. So the case studies are designed to inspire and provide practical guidance on integrating sustainability into procurement processes. They illustrate how various sustainability criteria can be applied in practice and also demonstrate the role of certification as TCO certified in EPEAT. So as also already mentioned and highlighted in the presentations, that ecolabels help public buyers by streamlining decision-making through trusted sustainability standards, ultimately also reducing risks and ensuring long-term cost savings, and also simplifying the selection of sustainability ICT products without requiring the a very depth assessment of every supply chain detail. Additionally, this approach also helps to harmonize procurement requirements, ensuring that sustainability criteria are applied more consistently rather than being developed in isolation by different organizations. So by implementing these strategies, CFIT participants really aim to make a positive impact in areas such as, which you can see also on the right side, the circularity and the critical raw materials, due diligence and transparency, climate and energy, and hazardous chemicals. Around these 4 impact categories, we established a very interactive program each year for our CFIT participants, which include working groups, webinars, and the development of tools. These tools include also mini guides for purchasing organizations, offering practical advice on how to address these various impact categories through procurement. Last slide, please. So for us, it's especially important to foster a culture of learning from one another and encourage also very active participation in the program. We'll be very happy to discuss how perhaps your organization can join the CFIT Pact and contribute to the advancement of sustainable ICT procurements. So my colleague Marieke Weerstein and I manage the CFIT Secretariat, and we're available to go into more detail about what I've discussed today and explore how we can work together to strengthen our efforts. So please also visit our website, where you also can sign up for our newsletter, or check also our LinkedIn page, which is in the QR code, to stay updated on the latest CFIT news and also our great case studies. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ekaterina. And I can see in the Q&A function we have a few questions. Perhaps we will have time to answer one question now in person. The question is, how do you raise awareness of certification among consumers? Claire or Catherine, perhaps you would like to give a response to this question?
I can just quickly say consumers are a little trickier when it comes to electronics. They often say that sustainability is important, but when it comes to actually buying, they're not quite as engaged, or maybe even aware that the eco-labels are available to them. So what we've found as far as pushing actual sustainability is it's institutional procurement, large procurement, that really has that impact. But we would love to see more consumer action, absolutely.
Yeah, I really echo what Claire said. We too focus primarily on large institutional purchasers, but the Global Eco-Labeling Network does have some resources for consumers, including a new app that was created about a year ago. I think it's literally called the Ecolabel app, and you can download it on your phone and take a picture of an eco-label on a product that you see, and it will tell you all about the eco-label and kind of almost rate it. So that can be a really useful tool for consumers.
Great. Thank you very much to both of you for the brief response. Perhaps we can address one more question briefly, which is, what about eco-labels of second-hand used products which are abundant in developing countries? I believe my colleague Leticia is online and might be able to provide a response.
Sure, I'm not sure it's a response, and also perhaps Claire and or Catherine would like to share their thoughts on this. But usually speaking, eco-labels are for new products, and they are not looking at second-hand products. On our side at UNEP, we are working on a global framework for digital product information system. So some of you might have heard about this through the digital product passport that the European Union is pushing for. So on our side, we would like to have a broader understanding of what this kind of digital information system could be. But back to this question on second-hand product, do system would enable people to have access to the information on second-hand products, because the products will move, and the information on sustainability aspects will always be accessible. Obviously, the huge difference between an ecolabel and this kind of information is that ecolabels highlight what are the best products, the top, the one that are performing best. In this case of digital product passport, or how we call it digital product information system, it's just give the information to the consumer, and then this means that the consumer needs to be in capacity to assess whether this information means the product is a more sustainable product or not that sustainable. So it's quite it's really different from an ecolabel, but still those digital product information system would enable access to information for consumers on the second-hand product, and we think it's really important because this will also enable products to stay longer in use and to increase their lifespan in the market in use. But it's a good idea to think also about an eco-label for second-hand products. It would be this is something that we can explore to highlight what are the best products in a specific category and give them a specific label. And I don't know if colleagues Clara or Catherine or Ekaterina,
I would echo that. I think another aspect to this is when you buy an eco-label product, it should be designed for second use, right? It should be designed to become a second-hand product. So already then, by extending the life, you've done something really good for sustainability. But I echo the thoughts on digital product passports. Those are going to be a really big part of this going forward.
Thank you very much to both of you. And just being mindful of time, I believe we will have to unfortunately close the webinar. But I just wanted to summarize and say that I think it's really interesting to see the complexity of the ICT sector, and yeah, how many facets are being touched by it. And we've heard about a lot of benefits for public procurers of using ecolabels and certification schemes specifically in this sector, whether it's simplifying the process, saving costs, as we've heard, reaching where procurement can't. And also really interesting, I think, to highlight is all the different issues that are being tackled, whether it's climate, chemicals, responsible supply chains. Yeah, so I believe it's really important to see these as powerful tools and try to improve how we are all working together to tackle these issues. I would like to thank the participants a lot for their interest and for being here today, and specifically, of course, also our wonderful panelists and speakers. Thank you very much. And as mentioned before, we will send the recording and all presentations to you. Thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.